Okay, so today we're going to be covering Legacy Goblins. This is the mono red version, although I think the black and white splashes may be stronger. For example, for like Warren or Weirding in black, or for Thalia in white. But anyway, it's the mono red version. So here we've just got all basics. Well, not all basics, but basics and no fetch lands. I'm not sure if fetch lands would help that much because well, for one thing, I guess I am still a pretty cheap player, and also because the life does eventually build up, and because, like, I don't know, I haven't gotten mana flooded too far with just mountains. Even though like a fetch land can throw the opponent off on as to what you're playing too. But anyways, you just got 11 mountains here. Got 4 wastelands. Every legacy deck runs wasteland, and you got 4 cavern of souls. And yeah, in any tribal deck, you got to run them. Make shit like hard to counter. They can't be Daze or Force of Will, you know. But bad thing is that they can still counter your Tar Fire, which is not that big of a deal, I guess. And we also have 1 Chromox. I'm not sure if I should run like 2 or 3 of these, but they are like, it is a way to get your goblins going faster. Here we have 2 Rishadan ports. I'm not sure if 3 or 4 are necessary, but I figured you want to have at least 2. They can lock down your opponent's mana sources when they run low on lands if you also get a lot of wastelands. And you can also tap down like man lands, say like Mishra's Factory and Mutavaults are probably the most common man lands you want to tap down. Color Screw is not as significant if they're running a lot of fetch and dual lands though. Then we have a Singleton Skirk Prospector. I'm not sure if he's all that necessary in a Goblins deck, but you know, whenever you're low on mana, you can throw some like Goblin tokens to him, and you can get out your Goblins faster, and that's all he's really in there for. And also, the sack outlet does help your Goblin Sharpshooter untap if he's also on the battlefield. And then we have Steen Scourger. Obvious one is like you want a tutor for it or something to bounce like Reanimator or Gurmag Angler so they can't get it out easily again. But you know, he can also be like the help you get out the last points of damage. It's a 2/2 body, good chump blocker, good blocker, and it can also get in the last points of damage if he's with a War Chief or Chieftain and he gets haste. He's got 3 power going on. And I think I rarely pay the echo cost, so it's not big of a deal. It's bouncing red. Next up, we have 4 Tar Fires. You want them over Lightning Bolt in a Goblins deck because, you know, you can fetch them with Ringleader, you can tutor them up with Matron, and, you know, it still serves the purpose. It kills, like, Deathrite Shaman and a lot of lower toughness creatures in order to get in that lackey hit that you want. Next up, we have 4 Aether Vials, which are must in most aggro decks in Legacy and Modern. Not much explaining to do here. Every turn you get a charge counter, and in Goblins you just really need to dial it up for 4. That's where you can get your Ringleader and Krenko to just keep getting more and more Goblins out and throwing them at the opponent. Next up, we have 4 Goblin Ringleaders. It's a bit weird to see like having 4 CMC card to get a 4 of, but you need 4 of them in the Goblin decks. If the matchup gets grindy, I mean, most of the time you won't win within like 4 or 5 turns. Goblin Ringleader will like replace all your cards. You can hit up to 4 goblins, and on average there are like 30 or so or a little more goblins in the Goblins deck, but even only hitting 2 goblins will help a lot, especially if you hit a Goblin Matron or something. Next you have Tuk Tuk Scrapper. Not that many decks really run artifacts to run you over, but you know, he's always useful. 4 mana for a 2/2 is kind of crappy, and you won't get the ally bonus, but you know, another choice is to run 10 Street Hooligan, but you actually cannot use its green mana ability if you have a War Chief out, which really sucks. Because you know, you can't decide to pay 2 for it when the War Chief says they just cost 1 less to cast. So I guess that's why a lot of Goblins decks do run Scrapper over 10 Street Hooligan now. Next up, we have Goblin Chieftains. Basically, you have only 2 of them because you really want is the 4 War Chiefs, because what +1/+1 and haste does is pretty useful. Your goblins don't rely on being big. They mostly rely on just outnumbering the opponent and outgrinding them and keeping them coming. So that's why there's only 2 chieftains, even though the +1/+1 is often very helpful. Next up, we have 4 goblin matrons. You can tutor up for anything, as it's in the more late game. If you just want to deal with something, you just tutor up a tar fire or a gem palm incinerator. Most common, probably you want to tutor up a ringleader or maybe even a Krenko. Or like a sharpshooter if they're swarming with goblin tokens. I mean, other tokens like Young Pyromancer. We have a singleton pyrokinesis. It's a mono red deck. You got plenty of stuff to pitch to it, and it can really help you just clear the board against opposing decks. Well, yes, it's a 2-for-1. That's very deceptive. I mean, if you kill up to 4 creatures and maybe just 2 on average, but that's still a 2-for-2, which is not bad at all, especially if you're using to get in like massive points of damage or your lackey hit. Next up, we have a singleton goblin power driver. It's sort of weird to see that you only have one of these, but I guess the newer goblins, goblins nowadays don't just require you to just get that crucial hit with power driver, and it's more grindy, I feel, nowadays. You could also just tutor him up with Matron, and he would probably shine the most up against like True Name Nemesis or Merfolk decks. And the Pro Blue also means it gets by Delver of Secrets and Snapcaster Mage. I don't know how many more creatures it really evades. And yeah, if you got a lot of goblin tokens, maybe just like 2 or 3, it's still like a 5/2, 7/2. It hits pretty hard. And we got 4 goblin lackeys. 4 of us a must. Turn 1 with Cavern of Souls against a lot of slower decks. He really works wonders. The best one is the Siege Gang Commander if you get him out, but even like just a War Chief or a Ringleader, that gives you so much more momentum, especially if you're not on the play. Next up, we have 4 Goblin War Chiefs. Yeah, 1 less to cast and haste is really enough said. 4 War Chiefs and 2 Chieftains. Next, we have a singleton Krenko Mob Boss. Basically, even if only 1 activation, we'll usually get at least 3 or 4 goblins in, which is a lot more little guys to help just win you the game. I mean, he's not always the common win con, but when he can get out goblins, he's a pretty big threat. I mean, doubling goes pretty quickly. Let's say you have 3, 6, 12, and then, it's over 20. And then we have Siege Gang Commander. 5 mana cost is hard to cast, and that it would go past the usual 4 of Aether Vow. But War Chief does help with the 5 CMC. And also, it's sort of just very useful when you can sack your goblins to throw them at other creatures, or if they have like a moat out or an ensnaring bridge and it's the worst case scenario, you just throw your goblins directly at the opponent's face. It's pretty good. Next up, we have 2 Gem Palm Incinerators. Basically, it's a cycling, so if it hits a creature, it gives you card advantage, and cycling also cannot be countered, except for like by Stifle. Although I guess he still can be responded to by like killing the goblin. But yes, if they only have like an unflipped Delver out and then it's your turn too, you can use them to also kill like a Delver Secrets or whatever that's gonna block your lackey. So yeah, he's pretty useful, even though like he doesn't go up to 4 or 5 damage that often. Then we have a Garbin Sharpshooter, as mentioned. He mows down tokens a lot. With the sack engine or just like a lot of creature combat, you just keep tap, untap, do a bunch of damage. Then we have 2 Mogwar Marshals. It's sort of weird that these are like the fell slots rather than say a Goblin Power Driver or a Warren Instigator. But this provides up to 3 chump blockers. And then also the tokens are just sacrifice fodder or just like extra points of damage. I mean, I guess it is questionable, but anyways, sacrifice fodder both for your own sacrifice outlets and if they have like Liliana the Veil. Yeah, it makes it harder for them to just keep -2ing or like against like a Pox deck, my Pox deck. So that's it for the main deck. 60 cards. Yep, Legacy Goblins. And here I guess we have the 15 card sideboard for Legacy Goblins. For mono red, we run Thorn of Amethyst, which is the same CMC as Thalia, but I guess in many cases you'd still want the 2-1 body since it still helps you get in damage faster and raise combo decks, but Thorn of Amethyst is not bad either. We have our Grave Hate cards, which are only 3 since I don't see that much freaking dredge at at CFB, which is where I usually go to play. We have Fairy Macabre and 2 Relic of Progenitus. You know what those do. We have 2 Price of Progress. Maybe like 4 Blood Runes or 2 to 3 Blood Moons would be better. But even if Legacy doesn't go up to like 6 or 7 lands like Modern and Standard do, even like 4 or 5 lands, it still deals a lot of damage if you're playing like a lot of non-basics or like all non-basics like Eldrazi. It's questionable, I think. But for now, I just have Price of Progresses. Here we have Spell Sky, which is a silly idea. But I guess it can save your goblins. It can like just block with the 0/4 body. And also, I'd say that it can also save your Ether Vow. If your Ether Vow is on 2 and they cast Abrupt Decay or something like that, targeting your Ether Vow, you vow in Spell Sky. You sack the Spell Sky instead of the Ether Vow. I'm pretty sure you can do that. So those were my weird thoughts in my mind when I decided to have a weird sideboard. Next up, we have 2 Pyrokinesises. These are up against like decks that run a lot of smaller tokens, or like say Grixis Delver in general. If they're making like a lot of elementals, you can get Pyrokinesis out and just trade it for the elementals and the Young Pyromancer. Then we have a Pyroblast. I'm not sure if Pyroblast is the best decision, but the way I think of it is that, 1 mana counterspell for blue spells isn't bad at all. And also, it does kill Jace the Mind Sculptor. Hua hua hua. Then we have another Goblin Power Driver, for those Merfolk decks. And True Name Bug decks, maybe. Then we have another Siege Gang Commander. I'm not sure if you really want another one on the sideboard. Then we have Pithing Needle for Planeswalkers and for other troublesome activated abilities. I'm not sure. Anyways, that's all that fits in the 15 card sideboards. And yeah, that's my sideboard for Legacy Goblins.